Good evening and welcome to the October 6, 2020 Gilroy Central School District Board of Education meeting. If you would all please silence your cell phone and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on the agenda tonight we have employee recognition, and so I'll hand it over to Mr. Regan Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to lead the recognition ceremony tonight. This year's event, unfortunately, isn't going to look like it did last year, but we're very happy that we're able to have an in-person event and recognize our outstanding employees. Even if we only have a limited audience, we're super excited. This is the most amount of people that we've had for this a board meeting in a long time, so we're really happy about that. We had a nice socially distanced meet and greet in the large cafeteria where our recipients received their plaques, and we got the chance to take some pictures with them. I'd like to thank the Employee Recognition Committee. The committee members include Assistant Principal from the high school, Anne Marie Holmes, Director of Food Services, Megan Beck, High School North Secretary Dawn Weir, Pine Bush Elementary Teacher Christine Van Ort, and Westmere Principal Dr. Beth Beanie. These dedicated individuals are responsible for all of the details for this evening. It was in the 1970s when the Board of Education authorized the establishment of a committee to review the names of Guilderland employees who have made an outstanding contribution to the school district. These individuals are nominated by their colleagues and chosen by a committee of their peers. Over the years, we've had more than 500 employees who have been recipients of this award. The criteria for nomination includes, but is not limited to, dedicating years of loyal service, assuming leadership roles outside of their assignment, demonstrating a pattern of inspiring others, displaying innovative and initiative, demonstrating special acts that go above and beyond normal expectations, or for making a significant impact on our students and or our employees. This evening, we are honoring 7 outstanding individuals. At this time, I'd like to ask Dr. Wiles, want to say a few words?
Good evening, everyone. I want to start by echoing Mr. Johnson's remarks about how awesome it is to see real live people here in our board meeting tonight, especially for such a wonderful occasion to recognize members of our team who have gone above and beyond at a time when going above and beyond is basically survival in any given day. Things are just so challenging these days. I love this award because this award is granted by your peers, people who see you day in and day out at your very best, and maybe at something less than your very best, but they know, regardless of the day, you do amazing things to make our school district just the effective and warm and wonderful place that it is. So I can't say enough how much it is our pleasure to congratulate each of you tonight on this recognition. I also want to say this evening as well. This is Regan Johnson's very first party that he hosts as the Assistant Superintendent for HR. So I think we need to give him a round of applause. I won't say who said this to me, but the comment was made, maybe you shouldn't tell Lynn Severance how this went, because this is looking pretty darn good. So I won't tell her. Next time I talk with her, I'll just say, yes, it was lovely, Lynn. But thank you for that great work. So without further ado, we're going to take a little bit of time tonight to recognize each one of our 7 recipients. And we have representatives from our various departments around the district who are going to share some words. So our very first presenter is Marcia Ranieri. She is our Instructional Administrator for World Languages and Cultures and ENL. A mouthful. All right, Marcia, the podium is all yours.
Thank you. Good evening. The nomination that I'm about to speak to you about tonight is one of my Spanish teachers at Guilderland High School. She started as a middle school teacher and has been shifted around in quite a few different ways, I would say. Her position has been cut, she's been rehired, she had to go to a different district, but all in all, she found her home here at Guilderland High School. She grew as a professional and began to shine and show her greatest potential. Megan Tidd currently advises the International Club and is very active in sources of strength. She has strong connections to her students and is able to encourage many of them to become involved in International Club as well as SOS. Megan helped to coordinate the tailgate that was put on before our homecoming game at GHS last year, and she really took it to a level that was engaging for our students. It was something new, different, and got a lot of students to participate. For the past few years, Megan has led the cultural fair with the International Club. She has collaborated with another advisor and made the cultural fair something that students remember after they graduate. Megan's involvement has been something that needs to be recognized. She works behind the scenes, late nights after school, and at home on weekends to make items for student events that will make a lasting impact. Last year, Megan has taken a leadership role within our department. She stepped up to encourage all of our team members to work together, be more accepting of schedule changes for the good of our students, and take a lead with our Pathways Fair, which sadly never happened because of COVID. But Megan is full of good ideas. She really did a great job of bringing our department together in a positive way. We worked many nights after school and had lots of laughs, lots of good jokes in her classroom, making t-shirts, creating decorations, putting together a slideshow, and setting up bulletin boards so that students would be motivated to take the highest and most world language classes that they could. Megan is able to connect with students that sometimes fall outside the gray area. They're not always connected to school, and Megan helps them connect with a trusted adult. Megan's one of those educators of the Guilderland School District that works behind the scenes for the benefit of students and her team. She's really grown into her position as becoming an integral leader within the World Language Department, as well as Guilderland High School as a whole. Congratulations, Megan. Megan, if you just want to stand and announce your guest. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Beth Beanie, who will present her award recipient.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to recognize and celebrate Mrs. Beth Ray as a recipient of the Guilderland Employee Recognition Award. Mrs. Ray has worked in the district for 16 years, teaching at both the primary and the intermediate level. She understands children, and her work goes well beyond the classroom. I'll start by saying Mrs. Ray is not a flashy teacher, she's not a loud, expressive teacher, or a bold, dramatic teacher. Instead, it's her calming, creative, and structured approach that is just what students need. Over her teaching career, Mrs. Ray has worked with all types of learners, including students with disabilities, English language learners, and students with high-impact behavioral needs. But no matter the learner, Mrs. Ray meets the child where they are, builds a connection, and creates a level of respect and understanding that says, we're going to do this together. Her lessons are engaging and promote collaborative teamwork with classmates, skills that go well beyond the grade level. Every child is made to feel they have something important to contribute to the class. Last year, a student with Down syndrome was fortunate to be in Mrs. Ray's class. While this child's academic and social skills were well below that of her peers, she was an active and important member of the classroom, engaging in morning meetings, calling upon her classmates to pack up painting a mural on the classroom window, and working on her own reading and math skills alongside her peers. She was respected, engaged, and a responsible classmate. Mrs. Ray and the special education teacher even helped create a role for her as a coffee cart barista for staff once a week. Another year, Mrs. Ray worked with a challenging student who had high social emotional needs, but their connection and understanding of each other allowed this child to access his academic education like no other year. When he moved to the next grade level, she continued to bring him healthy snacks as a reminder that she's still there for him. With Mrs. Ray, it's not what she's teaching, but how she teaches. She also works collaboratively with her fourth grade colleagues, planning engaging lessons and activities that go beyond the classroom. She helps plan field trips connected to the social studies curriculum, such as visits to the state capitol, Maybe Farm, Saratoga Battlefield, and Erie Canal. With her teammate next door, students worked in mixed partnerships, completing academic challenges, riddles, and Quizlets, and even renaming their classes Batman and Robin. Her students learned how to work collaboratively and respectfully with each other. And even during the school closure last spring, Mrs. Ray created a math Kahoot for all the fourth graders, and some enjoyed it so much they completed it more than once. Beyond the classroom, Mrs. Ray shares her leadership skills on many building and district-wide committees. Her strengths include her willingness to learn and her problem solving. There's no problem too big or too small that she won't help find solutions that work for everyone. This creative thinking is evident as a member of Building Cabinet, TALC, Scheduling Committee, and most recently as the Intermediate Technology Teacher Leader. And did I mention, Mrs. Ray is also a nationally board certified teacher. She is a learner. Thank you, Mrs. Ray, and congratulations on this award.
Tonight, I was lucky enough to bring along my good friend and colleague. For many years, we've worked together. Carol Winchester is a special education teacher up here.
And at this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium Mrs. Ellen Tossig, Assistant Director for Facilities. So many things she does, but that's...
For those of you who don't know me, I'm the one behind the mask, otherwise known as the facilities goddess and an assistant to Cliff Nooney. In a year where everything normal stopped for all of us mid-March and today continues in a new path forward, it's amazing how everyone in our entire organization, custodial services as well, have been asked to bend, adapt, change, and yes, we even ask them to excel at what they do best in the hopes that our staff, teachers, students can teach and learn in a safe environment. I am truly honored to be a part of this recognition event. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's an amazing time for us to be able to celebrate and applaud the efforts of what makes Guilderland Schools so strong, namely our people. And since I can be a little bit competitive, I have to admit, I was slightly pleased to see that of the 7 amazing award recipients, that 2 of them are key team members of our custodial services team, a team that has, like so many, been asked to do a lot and to do their essential work so well for our own safety. So I have a dynamic duo of Andy and Connie to talk about. So I get twice as much time as anybody else. Andy, with all of this as our backdrop to your performance, it's been a very rare year. I would like to share some of my very first impressions of working with you at the high school, and they hold true today, years later. Andy knows only one speed, full tilt. He is quick to smile, is always busy with what needs to get done, and is very often a first responder, no matter the ugliness of the job. He listens so well so that he can understand exactly what he can do to help. He wants to make your job easier. This is an admirable and selfless approach to his work. He is dedicated, he is resilient, and he is tireless. His kindness to his teammates and customers alike is steady and unwavering. If you need a job at hand done right the first time, Andy is the one to ask. If Nike sneakers had an image right above the Just Do It and the Nike swish, it would be a picture of Andy, and the caption would read, "Already did it." Andy, in our world of true customer service with what we do here, there is no greater accomplishment than to be recognized by your customers as best in class. We are so lucky to have you on our team and taking such pride in your work of over 20 years here. Congratulations. Please keep up the great work. Tie your sneakers, and thank you. Congratulations. Andy, would you like to introduce your guest? Connie Arnold is the other half of the dynamic duo, or as they've been nicknamed recently, the A-team, on our custodial services for GHS on the day shift. No matter what the day holds, Connie responds. Many times I can hear over the radio about a spill, a delivery needed, a cleanup, and God help me, a toilet that needs plunging. You name it, and Connie is already on her way and very kindly sets a great customer expectation. I'll be there in a few minutes. Great customer service skill. You are fearless. I won't tell them about the picture of certain pests that we've had to catch and dispose of, but you do it very, very well. You can tackle anything that is thrown at you over and over and over again. I don't think there's a doubt in this room at how busy this high school can be on any given day, and that's on the good days. You approach your work with an optimism and a have-to-get-it-done attitude unlike any other. You are consistently pleasant, never a negative word, never a complaint, and the work is not easy. It never is. What I really admire about your work ethic, Connie, is that it's full circle. And what I mean by that is you seek to understand what needs to be done, you do it completely with a great sensitivity to detail, and you check back with your customers to ensure that they're all set. And unbelievably, you even ask, is there anything else you could do? That customer service skill is rare, and I thank you for it. As I think about watching and hearing you work in this way, one of the busiest schools in the district, one word comes to mind: exemplary. And by definition, exemplary means a desirable model. You consistently lead by example, Connie, and set a great standard of care for your customers here. We're proud of who you are and are so fortunate to have you with us when we need you the most. Congratulations on this well-deserved recognition of your dedication and service excellence. We thank you. I get the great honor of introducing our high school principal, Mike Piscatelli.
Good evening, everybody. I want to start by saying congratulations to all the award recipients tonight. Good job done. I'm going to try to do this without fogging up my glasses while I'm reading this speech, which will be a challenge. Tonight, I have the honor of recognizing one of the truly special people working at Guilderland High School, Ms. Sue Smith. Sue has been a teaching assistant in the district for the last 24 years. 20 years in the special education department and the last 4 in the math and science departments. When we had an opening in the math science department and Sue approached me with interest, I was elated. Even though we had not worked together on a day-to-day basis, I had observed Sue's work many times while doing observations. I saw how well she worked with students and teachers, how compassionate she was, and how she was constantly moving around the room, supporting all the students in the class. Sue is an individual that I would characterize as always positive and enthusiastic, always has a smile on her face. She always goes above and beyond expectations. Teachers would agree that having Sue in the classroom is like having a co-teacher. She helps to manage the activities, she provides ideas and insights, and she always helps to keep students engaged and interested. She never leaves class without offering to help or discussing how the students are doing. Students know that she cares about them, and will work diligently even if they throw up walls at her from time to time. She never gives up. The students respect her knowledge of mathematics and feel very confident asking her for help and working with her. Sue's greatest strength is her ability to connect with students and staff and her outstanding compassion to support students in whatever way she can to help them find success. A teacher described Sue in the following way, which I think really captures her character. Sue is a person with unlimited patience and empathy for people, students and staff alike, and an authentic kindness that makes you feel welcomed and valued. One example that was shared is that Sue recently filled all the math teacher mailboxes with some special treats consisting of candy, a small notebook with some math jokes, and pencils that said math counts. Another teacher shared a story about Sue during the shutdown last spring. Sue is amazing, making appointments with individual students to assist them with their math. I would say that out of my class of 24, she met with at least half of them. I truly believe that because of Sue's dedication, she was able to help the kids thrive. We had 2 kids that she worked with on a consistent basis that were able to pass Algebra 1 because she never gave up and never stopped working with them. It could have been a Friday at 5 p.m. and she was there for them. Some of the other teachers in the math department also shared some quotes. She always carried me and made me look better by her support and for all she does in the classroom. Having Sue in the classroom makes it easier to plan class activities because she is so knowledgeable and willing to help. She always makes our lives and our students' lives better at GHS. Sue is, in a word, amazing. Sue, I hope you find this award helps you understand how much of an impact you have had in the building and how much you mean to all of us. Congratulations. It's now my honor to introduce our next guest speaker, Dr. Beverly Bisnet-Jenks, our instructional administrator for Math, Science, and Technology at Farnsworth Middle School.
Good evening. Rachel Carson, besides writing the acclaimed book Silent Spring, also wrote The Sense of Wonder. In it she wrote, "A child's world is fresh and new and beautiful, full of wonder and excitement. It is our misfortune that for most of us, the clear-eyed vision, that true instinct for what is beautiful and awe-inspiring, is dimmed and even lost before we reach adulthood. If I had influence with the good fairy who is supposed to preside over the christening of all children, I should ask that her gift to each child in the world be a sense of wonder, so indestructible that it would last throughout life, as an unfailing antidote against the boredom and disenchantment of later year, the alienation from the sources of our strength. We are so fortunate to have our very own good fairy. a teacher that continues to create that sense of wonder. That person is Jennifer Ford. She teaches science at Farnsworth Middle School and has been a teacher with us for almost over 25 years. She is a master naturalist and an educator. Ms. Ford continues to gently and with respect and humility draw students into science so that they ask questions, observe their natural world, and become interested in supporting and becoming stewards. During her students' lunch periods over time, they would congregate in her classroom to participate in a long-standing citizen science project and observe and collect data on the birds that visit their feeders outside their classroom windows. There would literally be dozens sitting in her classrooms, looking out the window, documenting what they saw, and sending that to Cornell University. This project is called Project Feeder Watch. This is just one of the many projects that Jen leads in our district. We have been fortunate enough, because of Jen's leadership, to bring every single one of our 8th grade students to the Albany Pine Bush to participate in Authentic Science, where we look at the restoration of the Albany landfill. It's our honor and privilege to work with Ms. Ford. She serves as a mentor to her peers, plays an active role in our local community, and she serves as a model of what it means to be a dedicated educator and naturalist. She oversees the outdoor club. She's supported and nominated students to participate in out science camps for free. She's led a number of collegial inquiries and workshops at the Albany Pine Bush in nature journaling and sketching. She has the ability to establish strong rapport with her students. In a building with such diverse student population, she attends to the details that make sure that all students have what they need. She does this with a smile and a calm demeanor, which provides a comfort level for her students, parents, and fellow educators. Over the past year, she has developed innovative, integrated projects with her teammates to align her lessons with the New York State Science Learning Standards and help students to see the connections between science and the other subjects in which they're learning. Literacy is infused in nearly every lesson. Ms. Ford's an avid reader. If a child is to keep alive his inborn sense of wonder, he needs the companionship of at least one adult who can share it, rediscovering with him the joy, excitement, and mystery of the world we live in. That's Rachel Carson, Silent Spring. Thank you, Jen Ford, for being that one adult for many children at Farnsworth Middle School. It's my honor and privilege to introduce my colleague and Pine Bush Elementary Principal, Christopher Sunita.
Thank you, Bev. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to each of our recipients this evening. I ask that you please join me in congratulating our final recipient this evening, Mrs. Lauren Whipple, as a recipient of this year's Board of Education Employee Recognition Awards. Lauren began her career in our school district as a special education teacher at Farnsworth Middle School. I was a house principal at that time and was quickly impressed with what I saw. That was the first time I met Lauren. She and I worked together many years ago, and I had the opportunity to hire her for a position at Pine Bush soon after I became principal, and learned that she was interested in returning from a maternity leave to a part-time position at that time. Needless to say, I jumped at the opportunity. Tonight, I am proud to have another opportunity to share some thoughtful comments which Lauren's colleagues have offered on why she is a special educator in the truest sense of the word. They have shared that Lauren is knowledgeable not only in our curriculum, but in how to have students with exceptional and unique learning needs access the curriculum. She begins by establishing a wonderful rapport with her students. Lauren encourages conversation, interaction, and knows how to meet a child where he or she is to bring that child to a new level of learning. She has successfully brought a child in our third grade classroom to a place where she is receiving most of her support successfully in the classroom and not in a one-on-one setting apart from her peers. Lauren has an energy and a sense of humor and enthusiasm about what we do and how we do it that encourages students to take risks and believe it's okay to make mistakes, because mistakes are how we learn. Lauren is kind, genuine, and consistently goes above and beyond to bring the team together to make sure we're meeting a child's social and emotional needs as well as celebrating their academic progress. She is a tireless advocate for children to the highest degree and has even helped to provide clothing for a child whose family was in financial need. Lauren has herself become a student by taking on the role of teaching literacy lessons in our building to ensure she has the skills and expertise to teach our most challenged early readers. She consistently shows compassion, empathy, knowledge, flexibility, and resourcefulness. She has a distinct way of making each child feel safe, valued, and special. Those of you who know Lauren know and will agree that she is never one to seek the spotlight, preferring the comfort of just knowing she has helped her students to become the best learners they can be. She's an outstanding teacher and a devoted advocate for each of the children whose lives she has touched. Lauren, you exemplify the best of the Guilderland Central School District and are an exceptional candidate to receive an Employee Recognition Award this evening. Congratulations to you on this well-deserved recognition. It is my pleasure to invite our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Regan Johnson, back to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Before I introduce Dr. Rivera to say some closing remarks to wrap up the evening, I want to again congratulate our award winners. It's been an honor to hear our speakers tonight speak so highly of our employees. It's awesome. I want to thank our speakers for the thoughtful words that they shared tonight about our employees. And I once again want to thank our committee. They did all the work. Great job. We're already talking about ways that we can make it a little bit better for next year. So with that said, Dr. Rivera, a few words.
Let's just give one more round of applause for all of the award recipients tonight. Thank you for coming in person. Congratulations to each of our recipients this evening. Your dedication to our students and Guilderland community has brought us all together tonight. The Board of Ed has given a great venue in which to honor you, and after many years it has become tradition. A tradition that makes us feel good, honors our best, and inspires us all. Thank you all for all the presenters for their thoughtful words about our employee recognition recipients. Through your words, we have learned more about these amazing individuals and the special contributions that they've made to our school community. Thank you everyone for attending tonight. We will now take a 2-minute break unless you would like to stay for the rest of our board meeting. We're going to move ahead in our agenda and then go back. We will move down to action items, number 6, letter A, for the tax audit, and I will pass it over to Neil.
He's going to be presenting the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. And Mike is up on the big screen, and I think he's, oh, it's almost on the big screen. And Mike was actually watching our proceedings here before this part of the meeting, and I offered him the opportunity to text him when we got closer to his portion of the meeting, and he said this is his favorite board meeting, and he was happy to watch our recognition awards. So. There we go. Is he all set, Damien? Okay. Okay, Mike, stage is yours.
Person, and I know there's usually cookies, tea, everything for those award nights, so I like that a lot. But each of you should have received a final version of the audit tonight. It was bound and delivered today to the Guilderland School District. As per the 5-point plan for New York State, I met with the audit committee. I reviewed this document in great detail. The audit committee's job is to make a recommendation to the board for acceptance of the audit, and the audit committee asked me to come before the board to give some highlights from the audit. The audit starts on page 1 and 2. We as a firm attach opinions to management's financial statements. At the bottom of page 1, we say that the financial statements present fairly. That is an unmodified opinion. That is the highest opinion we have as a profession. After that, we have pages 3 through 11. Those are management, discussion, and analysis. GASB, the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, has standard number 34 that states how a financial statement has to be presented, and one of the things they require is a management discussion analysis. This has been in your financial statements for the past 15 years. One of the issues with the MD&A, though, is it is mostly on the full accrual basis of accounting, and we do not keep our books and records on a full accrual basis of accounting. We keep our books and records on a modified basis of accounting. So if you were to turn to page 12, I will give you a couple examples of what happens here. So at the bottom of page 12, you can see that our total net position is a deficit of $132 million. No business, no school district could operate if they're at a deficit of $132 million. One of the things that is required is a study of the future health insurance, and we have a full accrual of that on our books, which is actually $334 million. Now, New York State does not permit funding of this accrual, and this accrual can change drastically because it's based on the number of retirees, the number of employees, the current medical trend rates, the contracts in place at this time. So over time, this could change quite a bit. We, as a district, are what we would call pay-as-you-go. So each year, when we build our general fund budget, we put the health insurance for the retirees in there and the employees, and we pay that as we go. So that's pay-as-you-go. So that's one of the biggest differences between modified accrual and full accrual. Also, in here, up towards the top, where it says total assets, if you go up 2 lines, you see net pension asset proportionate share, and you go over, and it's $6.6 million. So they make us study our pension systems each year. We have 2, TRS and ERS. Our TRS pension system for Guilderland is found to be overfunded by $6.6 million. But again, There is nothing we can do with this asset but put it on our full accrual basis of accounting books. We are not allowed to ask the teacher retirement system to take that as payment, nor are we asking them to reduce our rate that we have to pay for each certificated employee. And that's about 9 cents per dollar. So again, we have this asset on our books, but there is nothing we can do with it. But overall, a deficit net position of $132 million. If you go to page 14, you'll see quite a difference. Page 14 is one of the most important pages in the financial statement. It is the balance sheet on June 30, 2020. This is where the district wound up on June 30th, 2020. It is set in funds, as you see across the top: the general fund, the special aid fund, school lunch fund, debt service fund, and capital fund. The general fund, the first column, accounts for almost all of the activity that happens in the school district. You can see that we have about $17 million, almost $18 million in assets, $6 million in liabilities. The difference is what we call fund balance. GASB 54 says there's 5 categories of fund balance. The first category, committed, we're not allowed to use. The second is non-spendable, and we have about $4,800 in there. All that is it's in a form other than cash, so it's non-spendable. The second category that we use is called restricted. And you can see that we have several restricted fund balances. These are either permitted by New York State education law or general municipal law, and each of these is further defined in the notes on page 32 through 35. I'll go through a couple of these quickly though. The capital reserve, only $71,000 in it. That is a very restrictive reserve. It takes voter approval to fund, it takes voter approval to spend, so very restricted. The second one, the reserve for employee benefit liability, almost $1 million. That is only to be used for sick or vacation time when somebody leaves the district. It cannot be used for an incentive. Then we have a tax certiorari reserve. It's a very important reserve. We have a lot of people that would like to reduce their property tax values, and there's a chance that we will either have to pay some of those tax dollars that we received in the past back, so we can utilize that reserve. We have an unemployment insurance reserve. That reserve, also very important in school district. If we had to lay off an employee, although New York State would pay the claim, quarterly we have to pay New York State back. Then we have an ERS retirement reserve. That reserve can only be used for the employee retirement system, and it's used to, if a fluctuation in rates happen, we can tap that reserve so it doesn't affect our budget. The newest reserve, and it's 2 years old now, is the next one. It's the TRS retirement reserve, and you can see there's about $1.6 million in there. The Guilderland School District has about a $40 million TRS salaries for the year, and we can put 2% in per year up to 10%. So that is 2 years worth, about $800,000 a year. We have a workers' comp reserve that is used for worker comp items. And then we have a reserve for repairs. This only has $58,000 in it. This is another pretty restrictive reserve. We have to have a public hearing if we're going to use it. If we don't have the public hearing, we have to replace it equally over the next 2 years. Then we have the third category that we use, the word assigned. There's $97,000 in assigned fund balance. That is the amount of purchase orders that were outstanding at June 30th. Those automatically increase next year's budget, so we have the money to spend for those items we've purchased. Then we have assigned appropriated. That is the amount of money that we are saying out of our fund balance we are going to give back to the taxpayers. The taxpayers have voted on an expenditure budget. Our revenue budget, we say, is going to fall short of that by $638,000. So that is kind of balancing the budget. And then the last one is unassigned, and there's $4,121,308. That's a very important number. That is exactly 4% of next year's budget. and that is exactly what is allowed under Real Property Law 1318. But that $4.1 million is going to be a very important number that I'm going to show you later on in the report. The second column, the special aid fund, you see it has zero fund balance. The reason it has zero fund balance is because we are giving grants, special education grants like 611, 619, Title I, these type of grants. We have to spend the money, and then the federal government or the state government will reimburse us. So the revenue and expenditure equal, and we have no fund balance. Then we have our school lunch fund, and you can see that we have about $486,000 in our lunch fund. This is getting to be a little bit of a concern. We did have a profit in our school lunch fund of about $24,000. So New York State Education Department has a rule. They kind of like to see no more than 3 months worth of your expenditures in your fund balance. Right now we're slightly over that, but again, that can change if we need a piece of equipment, a new stove, new fridge, something in the school lunch fund, that could drastically drop our fund balance quickly. Then the fourth column is the debt service fund. The debt service fund has $720,000 in it. Sounds like a pretty healthy amount of money, but right now we have about $25 million in long-term debt, and next year our total debt payments, interest and principal for long-term debt is $3.8 million. So obviously that 720 will not even cover, about a quarter of our next year's debt payment. Then the last column, you see that it has a fund balance of negative $1.6 million. This is how capital funds operate. If you look up in the middle of the page, you see bond anticipation note, $3,163,860. That is a temporary financing source. It's not permanent. So when we do pay down the buses we bought, or we do bond the construction that we're doing, that will reduce the deficit fund balance back to zero. And the capital fund will go away if we're not buying buses, we're not doing a project, and right now we're doing the Smart School Bond Act also in there. But that whole column goes away if there are no projects going on. So overall, on a modified accrual basis of accounting, you see that our total fund balance all the way over to the right is $11,215,242 versus the $132 million deficit on the full accrual. So you can see there's quite a difference between full accrual and modified accrual accounting. Okay. After that, we have several pages of notes to the financial statements. The notes to the financial statements were unchanged for this year because there were no new GASBs that affected school districts for 2020. If you turn to page 49, you will see that our final budget was $101 million for revenue, and we brought in $101 million. I cannot express enough how good of a job of budgeting this is. It is very important that a district can predict its revenues, because when a district has a shortfall in revenues and expends more than it takes in, that wipes out all of that fund balance we talked about in the general fund. But the one issue here that I pointed out to the audit committee, and I just wanted to make sure the board was aware, if you look in the middle of the page, our state sources of revenue, and this includes BOCES aid, lottery aid, foundation aid, is $25 million on $100 million. If the state did cut 20%, that would be about a $5 million cut to the Guilderland School District. And as I told you, we had about $4 million in our Real Property Law 1318 unassigned fund balance. So this is where there could be some issues coming forward. Now again, I am presenting on a June 30, 2020 year end. Everything looks great, but there are pitfalls that could happen coming up. So I just wanted to point that out. Page 50 is the other side. This is the expenditure side. And you can see if you look in the middle column down towards the bottom, we spent $100 million this year. That's 98% of what the voters approved. So we significantly spent our budget. If we did have that cut, we would then have to take into account how much fund balance we would eat up just to maintain the current programs that we have at Gilderland. Okay. So after that, page 54. Very important. At the bottom of the page, you see that percentage of 4%. That is the calculation of real property law 1318, and that is how we determine that our unassigned fund balance can be 4,121,308, as I showed you on page 14. Then, if we move forward to page 58, because this is a yellow book audit, a governmental audit, we have to give an independent auditor's report on internal controls over financial reporting. And here, this is also an unmodified opinion, the highest opinion that we have as a profession. And I can't stress enough how well your business office performs. You know, Neil and John and their staff, they give us everything we need. We don't have a journal entry to propose. They're very prepared. They're on top of the situation of what's going on. So this is an unmodified opinion. There is no issues that we find with the controls over financial reporting. Then on page 60, we have the third opinion from Weston Company. Because the district receives more than $750,000 in federal aid, so that's reimbursement for school lunch, that's 611, 619, those are special education grants, Title I, we have to do what's called a single audit. And here again, an unmodified opinion, we didn't find any issues with the grants that are at the Gilderland School District. Page 62 actually lists out that $2.2 million. What's going to happen with this page is after the board accepts the audit, Neil and I are going to certify the federal portion of this, and we're going to ship this off to Jefferson, Indiana, so it can be in the clearinghouse for the federal government. Then after that, we have our last opinion from Weston Company. That's on page 66. Because the Board of Education has oversight over the extra classroom activity funds, we have to give an opinion on it and audit it. Here we do have a qualification of our opinion, and we audit 5 BOCES in 31 school districts, and they all have this qualification of opinion. All this says is we audit from when the money goes in the bank and from when the check is written. We can't be at every event. We don't know if the kids really watch 10 cars, 12 cars, 20 cars. We take it from when it's deposited and when it goes out. Now, I know that this year ended rather quickly in March, and one of the things is all the clubs are listed out on page 69 and 70. And normally, when we look at these clubs, we look at the receipt and disbursement column and we see if there's no receipts and no disbursements, so zeros in both columns, and then we consider those clubs fiscally inactive. So we just ask the board each year, take a look at those ones that are fiscally inactive, find out if they're still, meeting, maybe they didn't fundraise, maybe they didn't spend any money. There's several of them, and if they are fiscally inactive, usually the board closes them, so the board is not paying an advisor out of the general fund to advise a club that is not operating. And that is a brief overview of the hours we spent in the committee. But I didn't know if there's any questions from the board or anything the board would like to go over.
So can I have a motion to accept the audit? Barb, second Judy. Any other questions or any questions? Good. Just thank you to Neil and John for doing such a great job, making our job easy. All in favor? Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a roll call vote. That's okay.
Yes.
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 It passes 9-0. Thank you, Neil. All right, so we'll go back up to the top. Oh, just thank you. Oh, did he leave? Did John leave? Or Mike leave? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much. Have a nice night.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, so we'll go back up to the top of the agenda and public comment. We had one public comment come in via email. I'll just read it. To whom it may concern, I would like to voice concerns and frustrations over how remote learning is going. Unfortunately, my work schedule does not allow me to make it to the school board meeting tonight. I would like to first acknowledge that trying to educate young children during this pandemic is extremely challenging, and I understand the stressors on all educators. This is uncharted territory. We have three children in the Guilderland School District, 7th grade, 4th grade, and 2nd grade. Our concerns are the following. 1, multiple formats for getting, completing, and submitting work for all classes results in confusion. We have had teachers advise work was incomplete, and when we investigate, the teacher acknowledges the work was submitted and verified. It is very hard to see what is done. Number 2, unprofessionalism. When reviewing comments and emails from one teacher, his subject to my daughter was disappointed with regards to not having an assignment turned in. When reviewing in Google Classroom, she asked for help finding a document, and the teacher's comment back was, "It is there." In his comments also is no more missing work. We found these comments to be unprofessional and aggressive. We reached out to the teacher to have a conversation, and he declined and wanted to resolve via email. Very unprofessional. Also, there were grammatical and spelling errors in his email and comments. I find this concerning coming from a teacher. Number 3, attendance. There are time limits for children to log in or they are marked absent. However, teachers are forgetting to make the link active and kids cannot log in time. Number 4, for music, one assignment was to watch multiple videos on learning to play the piano, but we do not have a piano. I hope and I expect my comments reach the necessary leadership. I would be happy to meet or have a phone conversation about these concerns. Sincerely, Dr. Mark Winther. And I think we can follow up on this email. We don't have any other public comments, Linda, right, that came in? Okay, thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have the consent items. That includes the minutes from the September 15th and the September 23rd meeting, the CPSE and CSE recommendations, personnel action, financials, and textbooks. Can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Kelly, second? Gloria? Any questions or comments? Barb?
To pull the textbook?
E? Okay. And vote on it separately?
And
Okay.
have a discussion.
Okay, so we can look at then consent items A through D?
I wasn't at the 23rd meeting, for which I apologize.
Okay, are you listed, we have to amend that? Or you're not going to vote on?
I think, I didn't look exactly at that part, but I know I wasn't at that meeting.
Yeah, it has you as
Oh, yeah.
present, so maybe it needs to be.
Yeah, Mark is present, so we can adjust that.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Judy. All right, so we'll vote on consent items A through D. Any other questions or comments? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Okay, so we pulled out to letter E, textbooks. This is a trade book, and we have a motion to accept the textbook.
So moved.
Ben? Second, Rebecca? And Barb, you said you had a question?
Yeah, I really don't feel that it would be advantageous to our kids to have that as part of their curriculum. I found it very divisive. And I have a few quotes from the book that sort of jumped out to me. The gentleman author or authors attempt to give a non-history of racism, I guess, is basically the bottom line. And one of the things that jumped out at me after he got to the abolitionist movement, this is a quote: "Abolitionists urged the newly freed people to go to church regularly, learn to speak proper English, learn math, adopt trades, get married, stay away from vices, smoking and drinking, and basically live what they would consider to be respectable lives, basically live like white people." The author believes this advice was racist because it said that black people couldn't be accepted as themselves and that they had to fit into some kind of white mold. He then goes on to state that a racist idea is any idea that suggests something is wrong or right, superior or inferior, better or worse about a racial group. An anti-racist idea is any idea that suggests that racial groups are equals. Both segregationists and assimilationists think black people are to blame for racial inequity. Both the segregationists and assimilationists think there is something wrong with black people, and that's why black people are on the lower and dying end of racial inequity. The assimilationists believe black people as a group can be changed for the better, and the segregationists do not. The segregationists and the assimilationists are challenged by anti-racists. The anti-racists say there is nothing wrong or right about black people. The anti-racists try to transform racism. The assimilationists try to transform black people, and the segregationists try to get away from black people. The author dismisses Booker T. Washington, and Webb Du Bois says assimilationists, and his basic thesis, I think, if I'm interpreting him correctly, is that people of color who have been successful have only been successful because they've given up their, what he calls, sort of black roots and imitated white people, which he thinks is wrong. And I just think back to, my grandparents and great-grandparents who came from, in my case, Poland, in my husband's case, Italy, and Germany, Czechoslovakia. They came and they assimilated, but still maintain their cultural heritage. There are still, Italian-American societies, and there's still Polish-American societies, but none of them felt that it was wrong to be successful, to go to church, to be married, to do these kinds of things. And I just find tossing something like that out to young students who haven't had the life experience that a lot of us have had, I just see it as a step backward. Being as old as I am, I was involved in the civil rights movement of the 60s. And the whole idea there was to bring the races together, to give everybody equal opportunity. And now what I see this book suggesting, in fact, there are quotes from Farrakhan and others that I can read maybe later after other people have had a chance to speak, that basically are asking for a separation of the races, which to me, as I said, is a step back in history. So I just don't see the value of presenting this book without at least a counter-argument or a counter-text that would show that, as Martin Luther King said, let's judge people by their character, not by the color of their skin. And I just wanted to open up the discussion because, in all honesty, I just couldn't buy the negativism of Christianity and of the assimilationists. The people have been successful in taking advantage of what is available in this country. it's such a downer to read it. And, what I would point out, I think our school district is sort of, hopefully on the cutting edge of repairing some of the holes in our curriculum, the contributions that Black individuals have made to our society, over the years, what slavery really entailed and how it hurt people. An emphasis on exploring African history in the countries, in that area of the world. We already have curriculum people working on this. It was brought to our attention, and the administration jumped on it immediately. A book like this, I just don't see as a productive plus, for our young students. But I have other things, but I'll let other people speak first.
Does anybody else have questions or comments? Ben?
So I'll piggyback off of Barbara, and my main criticism of the book is just the lack of critical thinking that it demonstrates, or that it alludes to, right? I mean, I think we can agree that we don't do a great job of teaching critical thinking in our schools, and this book really doesn't help. In the introduction, it says, "I'm no math whiz, but if Black people make up 13% of the U.S. population, then Black people should make up somewhere close to 13% of the Americans killed by the police, and somewhere close to 13% of the Americans sitting in prisons." And there's nothing in nature that would suggest that proportions have to be held. Africa has a larger landmass than Europe. Europe has more coastline. In Chicago, Blacks commit about 80% of all shootings and murders, and whites less than 2%, despite both representing little less than a third of the city's population. So, would we expect a proportional amount of prison cells to be filled by the races when they're not committing crimes in the same proportion? Page 61 briefly mentions Haiti, which had an uprising of slaves, and has been, I guess not African American, but Black people have, governed Haiti since that revolution. And Thomas Sowell, a prominent Black economist, makes the point that if discrimination were the sole or decisive factor explaining group disparities, we should expect the descendants of African slaves in Haiti to be far better off than the descendants of African slaves in the United States. Haiti, after all, has been an independent nation for 2 centuries, in which the huge Black majority has been politically and economically dominant. In the U.S., Blacks are a minority, slightly more than 1/8 of the population, subjected to various forms of discrimination since the 13th Amendment outlawed slavery. And yet, it is the Haitians who are the poorest and American Blacks who are the most prosperous in the Western Hemisphere and in the world. And, just to echo some of Barbara's points, William Lloyd Garrison, W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington are all listed in this book as assimilationists. Du Bois is an assimilationist because he went to Harvard and was determined to succeed. So there's no heroes to root for in this book, and I think that's what Barbara was getting at when she said it was not fun to read. The only unqualified endorsement of an individual that I could find was for Angela Davis, who is apparently opposed to Black imprisonment, but is supportive of imprisonment of political dissidents. The Smithsonian earlier this year put up a graphic on its website with material from the book White Awareness, Handbook for Anti-Racism Training by Judith Katz. And it labels traits like the nuclear family, frugality, punctuality, and objective, rational, linear thinking as white attributes or characteristics, rather than simply the multicultural fusion of practices that have proven to be keys of upward mobility for many diverse ethnic groups around the globe and throughout the world. I share Barbara's concerns and wonder really this is the text that we want to be introducing into our curriculum.
Okay, other comments or questions?
Goes up there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Waving her
Blanca's
arms.
Waving her arms, I'm assuming that means. Do you have a comment?
I think so.
You have to
You gotta
unmute
unmute
yourself.
Okay, you're muted.
Hi, how about, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So diversity is very important to me, as is racism. As a person of color, I feel like sometimes I read these things through a different lens. And all that being said, I actually share the opinion of Barbara and Ben, some of their points. And I did leave the book feeling like it was one-sided and feeling like it basically attacks any kind of cultural norm that there is now, or labels it as, racism. And so I'm concerned that sends a mixed message of basically, if you quote unquote do well in life, then you're some kind of failure when it comes to being conscious or anti-racist. So I also struggled with this book. I did read parts of it twice. Abraham Lincoln, for instance, was described in a way that I've heard before, but there was no attempt to give it a historical context. So I just feel like it's very one-sided, and looking at it as an educator, I don't feel that it's that valuable unless it was, the students read it and then read something else, a different view at the same time, or there was a big discussion. But I tend to agree with what Barb and Ben said.
Okay, other comments or questions? Rebecca?
I just respectfully disagree with your opinions. I read it several months ago, so I honestly don't remember it nearly in the detail that you both provided. But I really enjoyed it, and I didn't think it was a downer. I thought it was really interesting and illuminating. My 14-year-old is reading it now, and there's definitely parts that he, had questions about and didn't necessarily agree with, and it really engendered this great conversation, just like this conversation that's happening right now. And I think it's for the ELA curriculum, right? Not the history curriculum.
Primarily.
So, and it says right in the first couple of pages, if I remember correctly, that it's not a history text, right? So I think if the point is to generate conversation, that's actually really positive. And it would help, teenagers critically think about all of these issues so that they can have this great discussion in an English classroom. So I would be in favor of keeping it.
Kelly?
Yeah, along the same lines of Rebecca, our children aren't blind. They see what's going on in the news. They see all these things. How great would it be to kind of have this out there so they can have these, something to talk about, something to have. We have a whole civil discourse, group that could, be engaged with this book. I think it would be a disservice not to provide it to them so they can have something that they can discuss. I think it's against our board goal, which we're about to approve here, of encouraging, focusing on diversity and equity. I think focusing on it includes educating and encouraging thoughtful and, maybe controversial conversations, but that's part of, growing up. It's part of me. It's part of now. When I read it a couple of months ago, I didn't think of a lot of the things that they thought about, that they presented in the book, and now I think about them. Do I agree with them 100%? I'm not quite sure yet, but it's definitely changed my filter, or my sense of going about in the world in a positive way. So I think it's okay to present. Yes, it's not as a history book, but we have tons of history books that have, I'm not saying one-sided, but a set of history, that we've all read and we all learned about. Why can't we present a little bit different side of it and let people discuss it? I don't think we should censor it. It's out there. We know about it. It's helping people navigate through a challenging time.
Okay, Gloria, you have your hand raised.
I just want to say I agree with Kelly and Rebecca in that sense, because I think it's a voice
that's probably strange to some of us. Some of the ideas were probably off-putting because we don't think that way, but I think it's a voice that we need to hear. We owe it. We owe it to our community to challenge ourselves, to listen to these voices. And I think I have to hand it to the staff who proposed it, because I think it would provide. I mean, I felt myself wanting to talk to people. I can only imagine what a classroom would be like, the discussion that it would be engendered, because it challenges so much of what the vast majority of white people might accept. But I think it's a voice that we need to hear. And before we make any decisions, I think we should really kind of talk further with the staff that are proposing it, but because I think it's a powerful book. I read the other one that was meant for adults, which I found amazing, but I found this one for young people very challenging. But I think we need to challenge it. This is an issue that we need to challenge ourselves on.
My thoughts, I think it would be irresponsible to use it without a teacher, but it's being used in a classroom with a teacher who is experienced and will be navigating the conversations that are important. And I don't think the point of the book is to indoctrinate. I don't think you have to agree with it, but instead just to get students to think critically about it. So having these conversations, not necessarily agreeing with everything. And if I remember correctly, there was a phone call I was not on. I know Barbie, you were on it with a recent alumni who talked about all of her racist experiences that she had at Guilderland not too long ago. And I remember, I think at a board meeting we talked about it, and you said, Barb, that you were shocked by all of it. And I remember my response was I wasn't shocked by any of it. So I think, I don't know who mentioned it, just viewing through, different lenses of what we take away from the book, just that alone can incite some really interesting and powerful discussion in a classroom. So I'm also really not here to ban books. That's just, it would have to be something very extreme for me to ban a book. And so that's just my perspective. Blanca?
Hi, yeah, sorry. So I just wanted to add, I feel like this book could be used in like a 10x or 11x format. I don't know if that still exists, because when I was there eons ago in Mr. Milligan and Miss Leggy's class, we would read really, really difficult content, but then we would have a really great conversation about it. And that's the piece that I think you're talking about, Seema, that's essential if this is going to work. I would hate to just say it's fine and then wonder how it's going to be used later or if it's going to be discussed. Like you, Seema, I am opposed to censoring. I feel like there's value in everybody's opinion, but this in particular is such a delicate issue. I wouldn't want to add fuel to the flame, so I would hope there would be a thoughtful discussion afterwards.
Judy and then Ben.
Looking back from quite a few months ago when I read it, I guess I look at it in the hand, thinking it's a difficult and delicate conversation, but in the hands of a good teacher. So if we don't just say, okay, this is what you're going to teach without knowing that our teachers are strong enough to listen and help with conversations, I think that it's good, and I'm not in favor of banning books. But it needs to be carefully presented or carefully discussed, wisely discussed.
Okay, Ben, and then
Sorry.
back to Kelly.
So, I agree with everything that everyone's said, and I'm not a censor either. I don't think anyone is saying to ban the book. If Bot wants to throw it in the library, free to do that. The question is, should it be a classroom use? Should it be a part of the curriculum? So, just wanted to clarify that point.
Kelly, did you have your hand raised?
I did. I don't know who was next, but
And you can go, and then Barb.
I don't think racism is delicate. Like it's everything. You just turn the TV on and it's in your face constantly. I don't think you need to tiptoe around it. In fact, I don't think you should tiptoe around it. I mean, maybe we shouldn't be in a historical classroom, but maybe we could hear a little bit about maybe more of the context that it would be in, so people could be more comfortable with it. But I think to give our students a little bit more credit that they should be talking about it, and you turn the TV on any news station in any second, give it 5 minutes, and they're gonna hear something about something that's mentioned in the book. And that's all I have to say.
Barb? I have no problem with discussing racism, but, here's another quote when they're talking about a group of artists who got together and you wanted to show the black experience. And the author says, whether white people saw them as humans or not, they didn't see them as human. Black people were symbols, animals, and ideas to be feared. Do we really want to tell our kids that this was the experience of the vast majority of people? I've never heard these people referred to as symbols or animals or ideas to be feared. He goes on to discuss Malcolm X and applauds his ideological transformation from assimilationist to anti-white separatist to anti-racist. He argues that white people weren't born racist, America was built to make them that way. He criticized black assimilationists, calling them puppets, especially the leaders who had exploited their own people to climb the white ladder. To me, it just isn't a fair analysis of what has happened in life. He discusses the Brown versus Board of Education, and he says, the schools began to mix. What's really interesting about this case, though, something rarely discussed, is that it's actually a pretty racist idea. I mean, what it basically suggests is that black kids need a fair shot, and a fair shot is only in white schools. The assumption was that black kids were as intelligent because they weren't around white kids. It's those kinds of quotes and ideas that he's throwing out there that I guess I don't believe they were his opinions, and they're purely opinions. I don't see it based on any substantive news reporting from the 1800s that black people were symbols and animals and ideas to be feared. When Brown versus the Board of Education occurred in '54, the whole point was to provide every individual in this country with an equal education to the degree that finances permitted. I lived through an era in the 60s when I personally experienced it, coming from a little town that really didn't have any black population, going to Boston in school and then being asked to lead a Girl Scout troop in Roxbury, which was an all-black troop. And the horror stories about their educational experience versus less than 4 miles away in another Boston district of what those kids had in the way of textbook desks. These kids had to share desks, they had to share textbooks, and yet 4 miles down the street, that to me was what the civil rights movement, was sort of all about and good for, that everybody in this country should be equal. We shouldn't be looking to become an anti-white separatist or, separate our races. This has always been the big melting pot. And granted, there were inequities in the system, but they weren't at least in this day and age, we are trying to bring people together. We are not trying to bring people apart and everybody have their own, Black caucus, Asian caucus, Native American caucus, white caucus. I mean, that is my problem. I have no problem with people discussing racism, all the inequities that may have occurred in the past, but the whole emphasis in this book is just a lot of his opinion as to what people believed in the 1800s, early 1900s, etc. And I just, as I said, have a hard time accepting that that's good, to be presenting to students when it's a one-sided point of view. He read something from Thomas Sowell, who totally disagrees with this author, and I guess would be called an assimilationist because he has become successful. And I I don't know, I just want to end with one sort of happy thought. Well, I guess it's sort of a happy thought. I was watching TV, as you say, this racism issue is everywhere. But a gentleman was holding a sign and he said, the only thing that should be separated by color is laundry. The only thing that should be separated by color is laundry. And so I leave it at that. As I said, I can't support the book. I just found too many things that I thought would be damaging to all kids without a balanced textbook curriculum guide that would present, maybe from the standpoint of assimilationists, how they felt and examine history. So again, thanks for the opportunity.
Gloria, you had your hand raised?
Well, I just want to say that any history you read is coming from someone's perspective. Any history. So as we read this book, we're bringing our own perspective to it. And I think we need to be very careful and examine our perspective. And I think this book challenges us to do that. You may not agree with it. I didn't agree with it, but it made me think about things. And I think this issue needs to be confronted and thought about. It's not going to be, everybody's going to, be la 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 and agree on everything. We're listening to a point of view that's very hard to hear. But I really think we need to hear it. And I think we need to trust our staff because, and I agree with Blanca because my daughter was in those classes. Those classes in the high school, the civil discourse classes, the history classes, the LA classes, we have to trust our staff that if they're choosing to do this book, then they're doing it in a professional way. I mean, I'm sure you can probably go in and sit in on a class if you want, because I've done that in the past. But this has come up before with books, that we need to trust our staff. They're not giving us the book so that we're going to pass it out or leave it in a library shelf for some kid to pick up and read without guidance. They're actually going to use it. And I think there's a lot to be learned from this book.
Other comments or questions? Luciano?
So my thoughts are, this book is covers an expansive period of time. So it's not, the author says it's not a historical book, but it's a historical recounting of the history of the United States. And so obviously it's not a big book, it's a pretty short read. And so to fit all that information and time into such a small book, I think there's a lot of facts and events that are left out. Maybe not intentionally, but just because of the fact that it is meant to be a shorter read. So if it's going to be used in English class, I think it would be, I think discussion is excellent. We need to have that. We need to have discourse. Perhaps they could use short excerpts from the book. They don't have to read the whole thing, just because it is such a complicated topic. History is not simple. And this is a very pointed retelling. If it's not a historical book, then is it the author's opinion? And how do we tell the difference between what's historical fact and what's the author's opinion? So I do trust our teachers, and I do want our students to have conversations, but I don't think this book is the only way to inspire those. And I don't necessarily agree with all of the points that were made in the book. And I don't believe that we should be presenting it to our students as part of our curriculum.
Okay, other comments or questions? Kelly?
One last. You obviously know how I feel about it, but I don't think it's up to us as a board to decide if we agree with what's in the book or we don't agree with what's in the book. I think we should leave it up to the teachers and the students to read it and let them have their discussions about it. I think they'll learn a lot about it.
I also agree that, this book came up on our agenda to vote on because a teacher brought it up, and I don't think, I have faith that the teacher brought it up to use it in a way that's productive in their class, and like I think I mentioned before, not to indoctrinate anybody, but to have these discussions. And like I mentioned, I'm not here to ban these books. I have faith that the teachers and the students can have that higher level discussion that we'd want them to have here in high school before they leave and go on to discuss other difficult, sensitive topics. So that's my view. Any other last thoughts? Ben?
I have a last thought. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Ben, and then Blanca?
Just to clarify something that was said, it's 100% the board's role to the curriculum in our schools. that's our say. So.
I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to.
No, you don't have to agree with what's in the book, but it's within the board's discretion. I mean, that's why this is a vote, because it is up to the board whether this is part of our curriculum.
I mean, we're here to support anti-racist work that's already being done at school, and then to come and try and vote against this book looks, I think, absolutely ridiculous on our part. And like Kelly mentioned, we're voting on some other things tonight that are also looking at inequity and diversity, also topics that are not easy to discuss, that impact all of us in different ways. So I think it'd be totally hypocritical to sit here, vote the opposite way for a book that brings up all of these topics that we're saying we're supporting. Blanca, go ahead.
I was going to say something similar, Seema, so word, that's fine.
New thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify off of your point, I don't think that anyone here who's spoken in opposition to this book is opposed to the anti-racist work going on in our schools. We disagree that this book furthers those goals.
Okay, so any other comments or questions? Barb?
Just a repeat, the one that caught me the most, why would anybody object to people learning, go to church, speak proper English, learn math, adopt trades, get married, stay away from vices, smoking and drinking, and basically live what would they consider to be a respectable life? I don't understand why any of those things in today's day and age, if they were followed, wouldn't make for a better society.
I mean, I think it's a great question, Barb, that could probably be discussed in class once they read the book. And I'm sure there are other students that agree with you and others that disagree, but they wouldn't even have that opportunity to discuss that without reading the book. You know, I don't remember which teacher brought this up, but obviously they, were thoughtful in putting this on their curriculum so they could have these in-depth discussions.
Could we at least ask the staff to present an assimilationist point of view also, so that there be a counterbalance and not just hate white people because they've done all these things in years past?
I mean, I'm not going to. You could do what you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
What are we voting on?
So-
All in favor to keep it on the curriculum?
Are we assuming to approve the book?
Yes, to approve the book. I'm sorry, to approve the book. So it's 5, 7. So 7. And those nay? Luciano and Barb. So it passes 7-2, sorry. Okay. Next on the agenda, information items. Dr. Singleton?
Okay, thanks very much. Well, I have another book for you.
Yay.
We'll talk about this one next time. So the title of this book is The Bus 57, and this is a book presented for your information. It is written by Dashka Slater, and it is for use in English 11, and the review form is there as well. And I will be upfront with you. This also presents some controversial discussions and some difficult conversations, but again, I think are reflective of some of our goals to make sure that we are inclusive of all students in our district. So that's for your review. We'll talk about that next time. Our second item, just a little good news sharing item for you. We had a school to work student, a couple of students actually, who are using a portable farm stand to offer vegetables and flowers from the Gilderland High School Organic Garden. And I've included a photo of 10th grader Richard Little with a beautiful cart of sunflowers, and I have to say I purchased the biggest zucchini I've ever seen in my life off of his cart. So they've been doing some really great work, and I think it was worth celebrating. So shared with you. And last, another bit of good news for you. So each year we have thousands of student musicians from all over New York State who compete for the opportunity to be selected for the NYSSMA Conference All-State Music Ensembles. Only a very small percentage of those who audition, my mask keeps going in my mouth here, it's driving me crazy, are granted the honor of participating in this prestigious event. Students who are accepted will perform with the best high school musicians from across New York State and under the baton of some of the finest conductors in the country. And we're proud to announce that 4 of our Gilderland High School students were recognized for their exemplary performances, and they include Morgan Dempsey of Mixed Chorus, Aidan Doyle, Instrumental Jazz, Grace Lininger of Symphonic Band, and Vivian Redmond from the Symphony Orchestra. This year, instead of spending 4 days rehearsing in Rochester with gifted students from across the state, students will rehearse with their conductors online, culminating in a virtual performance. Admission to these highly selective groups is usually based upon the score received the previous spring during the NYSMA Solo Evaluation Festival, where each student performs before a certified adjudicator who carefully evaluates every aspect of their performance. However, like so many things, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, NYSMA Solo Festivals were canceled in the spring. So NYSMA elected to use student scores from the previous year to fill out this year's ensembles. And of course, we want to extend congratulations to the musicians, their teachers, and parents for this outstanding accomplishment. So well done.
Okay, thank you, Damien. Next is school business information. Neil?
Thank you very much, Seema. First item this evening is the timetable for staff involvement, board consideration, public information, and vote on the 2021-22 budget. So even though it's early in this school year, it's not unusual for us to be already thinking about the budget for next year. It's really an 8-month process that we start in October and end in May. So I'll just provide some of the key dates. Many of these impact our community, so we want to make sure we share them. So at our next board meeting on October 20th, that'll be the first opportunity for the public to have input into the budget process. On December 8th, we will be asking the board for their direction. On March 2nd, we will have the release of the superintendent's budget. On March 30th, the board will hold their budget work session. On April 13th, we have a budget adoption by the Board of Education. And on May 18th, the budget vote and school board election. All of these dates are contingent upon having a somewhat normal year. So things could change. Hopefully they won't, but if they do, there will be adjustments to the schedule. But hopefully we'll keep to the timeline that I've shared. Next item this evening is an award. I'm pleased to announce that the school lunch director, Megan Beck, assistant facilities director, Ellen Tossig, high school secretary, Dawn Weir, Linwood Elementary teacher, Christine Grote, and community member, Amanda Gutler, were named recipients of the September 2020 Beyond the Call COVID-19 Award by the Albany County Legislature. In establishing the monthly recognition, Chairman Andrew Joyce stated, "Every day we hear about someone or a group of people who went out of their way to help the community by providing food to essential workers, distributing PPE supplies, or just by extending a helping hand. Without these selfless individuals, many people who were impacted by the virus would not have gotten the help they needed. This award is just a small way that we can extend our gratitude for what they did during these last few months." And to provide some context for the group of individuals from our schools, share a little bit of data with you. So from the onset of the school closure in March and until the resumption of school in September, a total of just shy of 180,000 breakfast and lunches, that's 5,000 meals that were prepared 2 times a week, were provided to students in need. In addition to recognizing the extraordinary efforts of Megan, Ellen, Dawn, Christine, and Amanda, I want to recognize and thank the many staff and community volunteers that helped to prepare, package, and deliver those meals. We could not have provided for those most vulnerable without the partnership and support of these many volunteers from our school community. Again, this just speaks volumes of our community and their willingness to help out in times of need. I've also included a link to the Albany County Legislature virtual meeting where this was announced. It actually puts you at the right spot in the meeting. It's like an hour-and-a-half meeting. So if you click on the link, you'll get right to the part where they do the recognition. But again, very, very pleased for that recognition for our staff.
Well deserved too. They've
certainly
really done
is.
quite a job.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Neil. Next, we have board president information. The first item is the NYSBA voting delegate guide. So it's all here. This is a reminder. You need to turn this, I think you get a Google form to fill out for the voting guide, and that's due by October 14th. So we can discuss it at the next meeting, which I think is October 20th. Any questions about that? The next item is the list of policies, and we'll be pulling one out and to suspend the rules to vote on it, but anything we should be looking at from the policy committee? Anything specific?
No, this is just a first read.
Okay. So I'll make a motion then to suspend the rules to vote for, what's this, 1900, the parent and family engagement policy. I think this needs to be, go into the ESSA plan, and so we need to move ahead and vote on it tonight, if that's okay with everybody.
Second.
Barb, a second. Judy? Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you, Barb. Next, we have the handbook for Better School Board Operating Procedures. I think this is just for information now. Gloria, do you want to add anything?
No, we had said that I did not get anything from anybody regarding any changes for sections 3, 4, and 5. So unless somebody had something and forgot to send it to me, I'm assuming those sections were okay.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. That's it for me. Moving on to action items, school business. Neil?
Thank you. Next item this evening is the recommendation to award or to approve agreements for federal IDEA flow-through funds, and we have a number of schools for which that applies, and I'll read through that list quickly. Advanced Therapy, Center for Disability Services, Early Childhood Education Center, Charlton School, Circle of Friends, Crossroads Center for Children, New England Center for Children, Oak Hill School, Parsons Child Programs and Family Resources, Spotted Zebra Learning Center, Springbrook, New York, and St. Catharines Center for Children.
Can I have a motion to approve the agreements? Judy? Second, Gloria. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
Next item is a resolution to approve the agreement with Alarm and Suppression Incorporated to provide fire alarm construction services, part of the $30.9 million capital construction project.
Can I have a motion to approve the service agreement? Rebecca? Second, Kelly? Any questions or comments? Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0.
And then finally this evening, a resolution to approve service agreements to provide educational services to resident students, and that would be for Hillcrest Academy, Learn Well, and South Colony Central Schools.
Can I have a motion to approve these agreements? Barb? Second, Kelly? Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you, Neil. Next, we move on to superintendent action. Dr. Wiles?
Thank you. I only have one item this evening, and that is a recommendation for the board to approve our Project SAVE plan. This is our district-wide safety plan that was up for its first read at our last board meeting.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the Project SAVE plan? Ben? Second, Judy? Any questions or comments about this? Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you, Dr. Wiles.
You're welcome.
Next, board president action. The first item is Board of Education goals. Listed here are the goals that we've talked about, and then there's a working document attached to this. And so I'll just read through the resolution. The Board of Education goals resolve that the Board of Education adopt the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely or SMART goals in the following areas: close achievement/opportunity gap, focus on supporting the whole child, focus on diversity and equity, and facilities. Can I have a motion to approve the goals? Ben? Second, Gloria? Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Next, we have the establishment of the Equity and Diversity Committee. And be it resolved that the Board of Education establish an Equity and Diversity Committee for the purpose of guiding the Board of Education for achievement of goals in this area. These goals are also presented for adoption this evening. The board will request letters of interest from school community stakeholders to be considered for membership on this committee. Can I have a motion to accept the establishment of this committee? Ben? Second, Kelly? Any questions or comments?
Seema, did we decide how many people are going to be on this committee?
I don't think so. I think we were going to first ask for letters of interest and see. And if I remember correctly, the communications committee said they could help in terms of asking for letters, putting that out there. I'm looking at you, Gloria, assuming that you're the chair of the committee.
That was a good assumption.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, we did discuss it at our communications committee, and we would be happy to get this off.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes, oh, I'm sorry, any nays? And abstain? I'm sorry, Barb, I didn't see if you voted. So you vote yay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, so passes 9-0. Just making sure. Next on the agenda, the board committee reports. We'll start with communications.
Okay, yes, we met on September 30th. We used that meeting as an opportunity to set some goals for ourselves as a committee. And we'd like to just inform the whole board that we set 4 goals for ourselves. One was to be a COVID communication to the community, to kind of keep an eye on that, getting word out to the community about protocols, safety measures. We discussed the idea of having a safety tip of the week. We're working on that idea. Second goal was to continue to finalize that handbook of board procedures. The committee will review how well the guideline worked this year, and maybe we would suggest that every spring the communications committee bring back to the whole board the idea of let's look at it, okay, let's move forward. We did, I did get some changes that I emailed all of you. There were some minor changes and some really good ones that Ben suggested. We're down to only 2 that I haven't finalized. So I'd like to bring those to the communication committee in terms of just getting some language. One of them was to include public comment using remote learning or remote option. And the other one is I need to get Ben to help me get the language straight on one of the sections, just the legal language. But everything else is done. We have a reference for the open meeting law one. So everything else seems fine, and we'll get the final changes, and then we'll give you a full copy of the 3 sections again. The other 3 sections seem fine. There were no suggested changes, so it looks good. So that was our second goal. Our third goal is to assist in the communication about board goals. For example, assist in the effort to publicize our new diversity and equity committee and call for participants. So that was the one that you just asked if the committee would do, and we'd like to, kind of kick that off and get that going. And our fourth goal is to work on the community engagement aspect as we have in the past for the budget development process. So during that time period when we're looking to engage the community, getting input and getting information out, the communications committee usually kind of headed that up, and we'd like to continue doing that. And we set another meeting for October 14th.
Awesome. Thank you, Gloria. Next, policy.
You have the fruits of our labor, and we have another meeting coming up, I think, the 23rd?
Whatever you say, Barbara. I'm not sure.
Wednesday, I think, at 4.
Okay.
Thank you, Barb. Next, business practices. Judy?
We haven't met yet. We have a meeting scheduled for October 20th, which may sound familiar because that's also our next board meeting. Our meeting will be at 4:30 on that day.
Thank you, Judy. And last, audit. Ben?
Audit met on the 23rd and quote Barbara, you have the fruits of our labor. We reviewed the audit with Mike Rossi from Weston Company, and the claims auditor reports, which were both approved this evening. Our next meeting, I believe, is October 21st.
Thank you, Ben. Next, public comment number 2. Linda, did anybody email? No? Okay. And then last, board issues, ideas, and sharing. Does anybody have anything to share? I know Kelly, you emailed about putting that, now we have a Board of Education at guilderlandschools.net email. And so that email will go to everybody on the board and to Dr. Wiles. And so maybe we can put that up on the website. I think that's a good idea. And that will probably save emails people get asking about other people's emails. I think they're all there, but that just makes it more efficient.
Yeah, I was just looking for it. I couldn't like immediately find it, so if I had to look through our emails to find it, so it'd be nice if it was a little bit more central. Be like, hey, email the board, click here, it'd be great.
Can we put that on the website, Dr. Wiles?
Yeah, I actually, when I saw your email, I forwarded it to Amy so she could get it on there.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Any other ideas, sharing? All right, so can I have a motion to adjourn? Everybody. Kelly, second. Ben? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 9-0. Thank you, everybody. Good night.